How's it going today?
Everything is great, Jason. How are you?
Good. Very good. Here we are with another book chat. And today's book chat was my pick. It's one that the reason it was a pick is because I had so many people tell me, oh my goodness, you have to read this book about sleep. It's going to kind of blow your mind how important sleep is and what all it has to do with. And finally, I was at an event over at Wingspread. That's the Johnson Foundation place over near Chicago. And this one person kind of grabbed me and said, have you ever heard of this book? And so I said, that's it. That's it. I'm doing it. And so I talked Tana into reading it. And I know sleep's important. I've heard the word sleep hygiene many times. And I personally know the impact that sleep has on me when I'm not treating myself right and letting myself get that proper sleep. But this took it to a whole other level for me. I truly am shocked. And right off, let me say, please do listen to or read this book at your earliest opportunity in your life. Because sleep deprivation is devastating to the profit of companies, to effectiveness in life, to relationships, to safety, and all cause mortality. I mean, there isn't a thing that sleep isn't affecting. And the interesting thing is that most are underslept. And that's what's interesting. So, Tana, any words from a high level before I pretty much just kind of zip through a bunch of interesting bullet points, and then we can let everyone get back to their day? Any thoughts?
This is definitely a right up Jason Alley kind of book. It talks a lot about the brain and the parts of it. And so it gets a little bit thick at times, but it definitely doesn't talk down to you. So if you want to learn about sleep, it is definitely a great book to check out. Did we mention what the title and the author is yet?
No, but they already read the title. Yeah, no, this is, thank you for that. This is Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. He is a scientist and a professor of neuroscience and psychology at the University of California in Berkeley, and 27 years at this. And he has been on a mission to understand what the heck sleep is. And the cool thing is, right up front, he says, we don't understand it, but we do know that it impacts every single variable of human existence. And it couldn't be more important. So he's got the soapbox out. He's written this book, and it really is very eye-opening. And it does get a little thick some parts, so you can speed through those. But just the data and some of the interesting stories and anecdotal things that he talks about throughout the whole thing, and the study results especially, were mind-boggling. So yeah, we'll go ahead and zoom in. And Tana, at any point as I'm kind of going through these points, go ahead and step in.
Sure.
So I'll start kind of mythopoetic here. Yeah, Shakespeare nailed it when he said that sleep is the chief nourisher of life's feast. I think that's a really nice summary. Leave it to Shakespeare to kind of say, hey, everybody, sleep's really important. Give it a second thought. Engineer your environments so that you have a quiet, healthy, proper night of sleep. This book, again, it's called Why We Sleep. It is it's a book that goes all the way down to nano, all the way up to macro of our species history around sleep. And basically, the big, I guess, nugget to know is that 2/3 of adults in the West are clinically underslept. So some of these things I'm about to tell you about, really think about that. You're in 3 people in a room, 2 of them are not sleeping as much as they could be. And we're going to talk about some of the reasons why that matters. So I want to say, too, that there was a study. There were hundreds of studies quoted in this book, but one study said that the interesting thing is that humans don't have the capability, statistically, this has been studied, they don't have the capability to advise or inform themselves or others when they have been underslept. They don't have a reference point. So the people that are underslept, 10 times out of 10 will say, No, in general, I'm not underslept. Everyone understands when you had the all-nighter, that's different. That's not what we're talking about. He's talking about long-term lifestyle habit of underslept. Humans can't distinguish when you're underslept. It's a paradigm of their position. So I thought that was super interesting. So if you're hearing these words right now and you're like, yeah, I don't, I'm okay. I sleep my 6 to 7 or whatever hours, I'm good. Maybe not. In fact, probably not. The statistics say. So he'll go on to say that sleep is the universal healthcare provider. All things related to human health and well-being are actually tied directly and indirectly to sleep quality. He said that in 27 years in this field, and he's about as deep as a human can get in it, he says that he has not yet found a single mechanism of action in the human creature that is not dependent directly on sleep. So, I mean, this is a system-wide thing. That's why we spend half of our lives alive sleeping, or not quite half, but a lot of our life sleeping. It's important, or else it would have evolved out of us. And I thought that his analogy about during the day, you have a jump drive, and you kind of solving and the conversations and all the stuff you did during the day on this jump drive, this proverbial jump drive. Then you go to sleep at night, and the jump drive gets plugged into the big computer, the big connectome. And during sleep, all that stuff on the jump drive gets cleared off and goes where it belongs, or gets carved out, and meaning gets placed, or emotion gets carved off. A whole lot of things go on between the REM and the non-REM cycles of sleep. And then the next morning when you wake, boop, you pull the jump drive out, and it's clean, and you get to fill it up again. If you didn't have clean sleep throughout the whole night and the right amount that is needed, which he is saying is 7 to 8 hours, and he said most it's 8 hours, then that jump drive is not going to be clean in the morning, and you simply won't be able to put as much of life experience back onto it. You won't be able to grow as much, and you won't be able to bring as much back to the big hard drive next night. And it compounds and compounds. So the next really logical thing that would be on my mind is, oh, I feel okay when I, sleep 6 hours. Well, the data says, and this is all just on longitudinal studies, these are all peer-reviewed, published paper research things, so this isn't really a debatable thing. 1 in 12,000 humans are born with this amazing gene, it has been identified, where you actually do get to sleep as little as 5 hours, and everything's fine. There is no damage. You actually do clear that jump drive every day. I actually do know a person like that. I think legitimately. He has 4 children. He owns a very successful law firm. He coaches everything there is to coach, and he still finds time to watch every freaking movie on the planet. It doesn't make any sense to me. He just doesn't need very much sleep. He jumps out of bed, high octane, and he can do it. 1 in 12,000. That's literally what the data is on the genetic study. So the rest of us are a little bit kidding ourselves. He said the rest of us are 7 to 8 hours, unless you're that 1 out of 12,000. So that's a pretty big deal. And of course, when it comes to sleep, we have to mention alcohol and caffeine. So in our trainings, Tana, as you're aware, we do talk about what happens in sleep when you have alcohol or caffeine, and just know that it's a big deterrent, and especially REM, quality REM sleep, and it reduces or even eliminates that REM sleep where the meaning is attached from new experiences into the old connectome, which becomes you. So if you're into learning things, you really got to watch the alcohol. The old nightcap alcohol thing, it's just been debunked. It might help you sleep, but it's a very faux sleep. It's not the deep sleep that you need. It's not the REM sleep that you need. And caffeine, same kind of thing. So he's not encouraging you to get rid of these things. They're not evil. They are state-altering drugs that have been culturally accepted, and by the way, are quite socially accepted. So keep doing it if that's your jam. just know that you've got to do that at a time where it clears really well. So alcohol, you're looking at it, several hours before sleep time, 4 hours away from sleep time if you can. And caffeine, that's a little bit more devious. That has a very long half-life in most of us. But there is an enzyme that some humans have more of. He was talking about it. It was like called P198 or something like that, where that helps you process the caffeine molecule far more effectively. But that is just if you have that. So those who don't have that enzyme in plenty, me being one of them, know it, and you just don't quite get that deep sleep and that cerebral spinal flush that we talk about in the trainings. So be careful with your caffeine and alcohol. So those were some really high level things I'd say. The last thing I'll throw in there is it goes along with there isn't a single mechanism of action in the human creature that isn't affected by sleep, is its effect on heart disease and cancer and obesity was shocking. Like that was really like, oh, wow. Sleep, when done properly and in a healthy way and well protected, it really is universal healthcare, and it's free. I'm not sure we should be doing any new programs. Maybe it's just, hey, humans. He quotes Samuel L. Jackson's book. Do you remember that, Tana? Mm-hmm. It was, he wrote a book for his child called Go the F to Sleep. And the author was saying, that's what we need to be telling all humans, like really double click focus on this sleep thing. So I have some other notes, but I just want to take a little time out. Anything that you wanted to kind of emphasize with what was said or that I may have missed there at the high level?
No, he definitely talks a lot about caffeine, and and I also really liked the part where he was talking about the junk drive and how the things that we're learning throughout the day kind of goes into the hippocampus, but at night it is going into our cortex, so it's more long term. And I enjoy all of the mechanics that he gets into of where things are going and why it moves and things like that. So, and you already touched on that. That was also a really big hit for me.
When he got into the teenager thing too, so I happen to have a teenager at home, and wow, when he was talking about how a circadian rhythm of a teenager is pushed forward into the night, and as a parent ages, they go the other way. And so the world of adults says, hey kids, let's start school at 7 a.m. or 7:30. That means you have to get up at 6 or 6:30 or even 5:30, depending on how long your commute is. He said that is utter and literal lunacy and ignorance, and it needs to change immediately in all schools. And there are large health organizations trying to get schools to do this, but they just won't because of convenience for parents and work. So there's this thing where he said it's the equivalent of asking an adult to wake up at 3 a.m. every day and begin working. That's how far the circadian rhythm of a natural teenage developing person is. And so I thought that was fascinating. So not only are we asking them to get up, and they are getting up, we're now shaming them for being tired. And then you throw the whole digital world into the mix, and it's a tough thing to be a teenager these days. And especially since our schools, the way they are set up currently, not that it's the school's fault, but it's this whole, big engine that's going, and it's adding to the pile. And so let's hope that some awareness can come to schools where we find the right way to do this timing for teenagers. Something important there that was near and dear to my heart is I see my 17-year-old struggle in the morning hours. I mean, pain, real pain. And then you look at the corporate world. It's interesting that we are overvaluing the undersleeping employee culture. It's just ignorance on fire. This author is pulling his hair out that it's still a badge of honor that you stayed up till 1 a.m. again working on the thing, and then you got up early and you were first in the office. Some relationships at home are probably struggling, which impacts profitability of an employee if they're concerned about personal matters. But secondly, just straight up health because of lack of sleep. So remember, 2/3 of all people in the West are underslept clinically. If you're an owner of a company or, in a team that is allowed to have these conversations, start having the conversation. Encourage people to read this book or listen to it on Audible. The data is crystal clear. It's more profitable. It's more healthy. Your employees get to come to work a way stronger version of themselves when the culture of, hey, take care of yourself is in place, instead of the culture of, how much of your health and your life did you sacrifice for me?
Right.
So I know that, Tana, you're very much into that message. We echo that quite a bit, but this book puts some real numbers to that initiative.
Right.
On the health front, immunity, well-being, how strong your immune system is. There was this one stat. He said that 7 hours or more per night in a controlled study where the people being studied were exposed to COVID and the common cold. The group that had 7 hours or more per night contracted COVID and or the common cold 18% of the time. Those in the control group that got 7 or under 7 hours contracted it 50% of the time. So that's a dramatic increase in just 1 hour, from 7 hours to under 7 hours. The two groups, it was night and day. Can you imagine under 5 hours or 4 hours?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was that other one that said individuals with less than 6 hours of sleep per night, experience just one night of 6 hours, experience a 60% increase in amygdala override activation the next day. So we've all, that 6 hour thing is pretty real for most people. That happens quite often. In other words, the executive command or the prefrontal cortex, which usually overrides that emotional hijack, is decreased dramatically, and fight or flight irrationality kicks in. And do you want your employees making irrational decisions and emotional decisions, or strategic decisions? So 6 hours, just one night, does that to some humans. So think about that. So this sleep thing does matter to the bottom line. It's usually business people who listen to these. So I just wanted to, bring that to the foreground. There's a big market out there for sleep assistant things. And he said that there is no drug, no technique, nor device that replaces sleep. He said statistically, period, end of sentence. Peer-reviewed studies never, ever support the claimed improvements, which is interesting. I think he'd mentioned 64 drugs, so he knows, and it's just wild. Now, obviously, if you have some serious condition, you got to do what you got to do. You got to try what you got to try. But obviously try all the natural stuff too, to just really get to that protected sleep, 7 to 8 hours. And then, you go one step further with safety. So immunity in your immune system is one thing. Safety. There was this one stat, he said, where trucker fatigue and sleep apnea is the #1 cause of accidents on highways for truckers. And in the United States, for every 1 death of a truck driver, there are 4 surrounding car deaths. Can you imagine that? And that's the #1 cause of accidents. So this truck thing is just one example. Going back to the teenage expression, imagine a tired teenager and their accidents. He has stats around that too, but we could go on all day with all these amazing examples that they brought up. But on the safety front, AAA did another study that showed that people are 4.5 times more likely to get in a fatal car crash compared to an 8-hour night of sleep the night before. So 4 hours of sleep, basically you are 400% more likely to get in a fatal car crash just from 1 4-hour night. So, I mean, this sleep thing is so serious. I go on, I could just go on and on, but I can tell this will just get a little bit numb. But in our world, Tana and I coach and help companies and people to find that healthiest way to be highly effective. And one of our pillars is focus and concentration. Our company's named Focus to Evolve. Concentration is the very first human capability to die off with reduced sleep, the very first one. And so you really do, just as a business owner or as a business person yourself, ask yourself, does deliberate focus matter to what you do? And of course it does. We all know what it's like to be tired and how hard it is to concentrate, especially when the work buzzsaw is on. So as it relates to us, obviously I am feeling a little compelled to create a new module within our trainings called sleep hygiene. And I would, it does more than just helps you focus to be more profitable and get more meaningful things done in less time. But the health impact, my goodness, we're not health teachers, but that would be cool because it would be an amazing side effect. So there we go. I kind of I'll just look through my notes here. Again, I don't want to go too far in all this, but I wanted to express at least a couple kind of emotional hooks. Hopefully some of what was said there does resonate with you at home, and you're feeling a little bit interested to take a deeper dive into this book, Why We Sleep. If that's a bit of a long book, because I think it was like 12 hours or something, it was a big one. He's done the blog circuit too, so he's probably been on any blog that you recognize as popular. So just Google search podcast Matthew, and it will come up. Matthew Walker, sorry, and he'll come up, and then pick your favorite podcast. Do your little 1 hour with him, and hopefully some of it sticks and helps you to protect your sleep more. All cause reasons for doing that. Yeah, that was a lot of talking on my side. I know this was monologue time. So I just want to shut up for a minute. And if there's anything more you'd like to add in terms of how you see it and how it might benefit people.
Sure. Sure. So he did have kind of an appendix to the book that has 12 tips for good sleep. And Jason already touched on some. So I'm just going to read through the 12 really quick because it's a good kind of synopsis of, well, what do I do now? Sleep's great, right, but what do I do now? These are some pretty good places to start. So number 1, stick to a schedule. Number 2, don't exercise too late in the day. Number 3, avoid caffeine and nicotine, which you already talked about, caffeine. Number 4, avoid alcoholic drinks before bed. You talked about alcohol in the nightcaps. Number 5, avoid large meals and beverages late at night. Number 6, avoid medicines that delay or disrupt your sleep where possible. Number 7, don't nap after 3 p.m. Number 8, make sure to leave time to relax before bed. 9, take a hot bath before bed. 10, have a dark, cool in temperature, gadget-free bedroom. Number 11, get the right sunlight exposure. And number 12, don't stay in bed if you really can't sleep. So those were his 12 appendix, like get these things in line in order to have better sleep suggestions for us. And I think they're a really good way to kind of start to see if you can get one of them into your routine and then another one. And once that one's in, and then another one. But basically this book for me, it just really spelled out how there's almost like this hushed conspiracy of we can't tell people about how important sleep is because our whole entire world will just fall apart. There's this kind of sense of very important information regarding sleep is almost being kept from us because our companies think that they need to keep us up late at night and have us available late at night and early in the morning in order to profitably run their businesses. And we need our children to be out waiting for buses at 6:30 in the morning so that they can be in school so that people can get to work on time. And there's just, and we hear about drunk driving and how dangerous that is, but when do we hear about lethargic driving and how awful that is and how dangerous that is? Like, we don't hear about these things in the way that we hear about other things that are dangerous to us. And these things, and sleep deprivation is so universally dangerous that the fact that it's not kind of more screamed about in our culture is just baffling to me. So books like this to get your own education, because I don't know why it's not talked about more, but it isn't. And so reading about it and making sure that sleep is an important part of your life. I know that sleep has always been something that I highly value in my life, especially when I was a new mom and I knew that it's a challenging time to get sleep. That's when it became the most valuable issue for me to get into my life, because I knew the type of mom that I wanted to be. I couldn't be that mom if I didn't have enough sleep. So things that were not as important in my life, like entertainment or things like that, those kind of went to the back burner because I knew how important sleep is. So read it. If you're not convinced that sleep is important for you, it will probably change your mind. And we highly recommend sleep.
I highly recommend sleep. Sleep is so important and so impactful on the human creature that sleep torture is actually outlawed. Like in military application, they can't do torture via sleep. So that tells you a little something right there. Even the torture version is outlawed because it's that impactful on the human creature's psyche and biology. It makes such a huge difference. The other thing, one last thing before we hang up, is one of the tips that you read there, thank you for that, great idea, was if you're not sleeping, get out of bed. That was very interesting. But he does say one important caveat to that. If you do get out of bed because you're just not sleeping, it's totally cool, but no blue light. If you get up and do blue light, that cuts the melatonin off, which is the whole mother of sleeping chemical chain reaction. No blue light, make it orange light or warm lighting only. And if you do go to your iPad or your phone, make sure you have that night version clicked on because it cuts down the red to blue light ratio. So blue light, be careful. iPads in normal illumination mode or phones in normal illumination mode should be eliminated roughly 3 hours before your desired attempt at sleep time. Or make sure it goes to that night view. It's in settings and display. Put it on night view. You'll see it looks kind of orange and weird at first, but then you get used to it. And you can do that every night. So get that melatonin trigger. And if that blue light's in there, it won't happen. So blue light elimination anytime you're trying to sleep or within 3 hours of when you're trying to sleep. So that makes it realistic. That setting, you can still look at your phones if you have to, but get that blue light out of there. So with that, let's make it a wrap, unless you have any other interesting things there, Tana.
I'm good.
Okay, we'll see you in the next book chat. Appreciate you tuning in, and we wish all you well.
Yes, thanks everybody. Bye.